I was a few days late on this one, but I was talking about in another video how they started with a narrative about Ottawa protest that the protesters were putting kids in danger, right? That was a new narrative that they rolled out, that children are in danger, and the protesters are basically endangering a lot of kids because, well, actually they said because of how the police might respond, and that might put kids in danger, which was kind of interesting that they themselves would admit that the kids are not in danger of anything else but the police response, basically. But then Trudeau went on stage again, and let's see this first thing he was saying here.
But again, the best way to resolve this, the best way to stop hurting Canadian citizens, hardworking Canadians across this country, is for the people in these protests to understand that they have been heard, but it's time to go home.
You see how he's just acting here once more? He's really emphasizing and really trying to make you feel like he's emotional and really listening to you, and really it's time to go home. We're tired. He's portraying an image of us all being tired of this, right? It's just been going on for too long. It's just let's move on and go home. This is the kind of emotion he's trying to portray. I bet he's like he's worked on this in the mirror, to really try to portray a certain emotion here, like an actor does,
It's time to bring your kids home from this protest.
Yeah, and once again, mentioning the kids, right? And insinuating that the kids might be in danger here at this protest. It's time to bring them home so they're not in danger here.
It is now an illegal protest, and the consequences on them and on their families will be significant if they...
Yeah, so see, now he's getting tough on them. It's an illegal activity now. You have to be careful now because you're engaging in illegal activities here.
They choose to continue with this illegal activity.
With this illegal activity. And I'm going to show you another clip here if you're going to hold on a little second. Yeah, so he went on here to start threatening people by, you're going to see, but he's threatening to use the military against the protesters. He's not saying it that way, but listen and see what he's actually saying here.
I've been very, very clear that using military forces against civilian populations in Canada or in any other democracy is something to avoid having to do at all costs.
See what he did there? This is a threat. This is a threat. It's nothing else but a threat. He doesn't want to say that I'm going to use military against the civilians. So what does he do? He says using military is something that you should avoid at all costs. He doesn't say, I am going to avoid this. I'm never going to do this. He puts it out there as a possible alternative, but he saves his own face by saying it's something that should be avoided at all costs. But he puts it into your head after, in the last clip I showed that he showed that it's time to go home, it's time to think of your children, and then he goes on to say, using the military against you is something that I should avoid at all costs. It's like, in a movie with a mafia guy, they're not saying like, I'm gonna break your legs. They're saying like, breaking your legs is something that should be avoided at all costs. It would be really horrible if something that horrible happened. It's something that everyone should always avoid, burning down someone's restaurant, It would be really horrible if that were to happen. This is what he's doing here. It's a mob tactic.
That's why the solution right now is focused on police forces enforcing the laws.
what is the difference between using military and police? If we're talking about removing people, and the police are still trained, armed, they're authorized in the use of violence against people. So whether it's a guy in a police uniforms using violence against a citizen or a guy in a military uniform using violence against a citizen, what's the real difference here?
That exist, protecting public order in the way that they are trained to do, in a predictable, progressive approach that doesn't skip any steps, that works to conclude this situation peacefully.
Yeah, it's just, he's talking around the issue, that is violence, right? He put it into your head that he's threatening to use military force. He's saying we should obviously not use military force, but that is actually putting into your head that that is an option, even though he's saying that that is not something that should be done. And he's talking about escalation, like going through the proper steps, but the proper steps in order from the police to deal with these people are escalating violence. So it's not better because it's a police uniform.
That's why right now it has become a lot more difficult and a lot more impactful and, quite frankly, expensive for people who are in those protests because they're tired of COVID to continue to be part of these illegal protests.
You see how he's lying about people, right? The people are not in these protests because they're tired of COVID, right? So you're trying to paint the picture that we're all tired of COVID. You're in a protest because you're tired of COVID. So we understand you. You know, we're all tired. He said this before. We're all tired of COVID. We understand you. But that's bullshit, right? They're protesting against you. You know, they're protesting against the state force mandates, the restrictions. They're not protesting because they're tired of COVID. So he's basically, I think he gets it, you know, but he still wants to hang on to this thing, this lie that they're all out just because they're tired of COVID.
The consequences on their lives for choosing to continue to endanger the lives and livelihoods of other Canadians, to continue to violate our laws, are going to be more and more extensive. And
you see, the problem he has is that they really didn't violate the laws, really. I know they put in an injunction or something, it's called, that they weren't allowed anymore to honk their horns, and they tried to make it illegal to bring in fuel. But other laws, because they haven't been able to just go and arrest them, right? And if they were really just breaking laws, they could probably be arrested. But that's why they haven't been able to arrest them, because they haven't really broken laws. But he's not saying here, like, notice, he's not saying which laws they're breaking. He's not saying specific laws or specific things they're doing. He's just throwing it out there that they're illegal, just to create like I said in my previous videos, right? What he needs is a bigger part of the public against the protesters. So he's trying to feed a narrative of the protesters being, you know, illegal, they're doing illegal activities, they're destroying life for other people and so forth. So he can get an opinion on his side, a group of people enough that he could act against the protesters. That's his agenda.
Therefore, we are very hopeful that people will choose to leave these protests peacefully now that they've been heard.
And again, that is the mafia tactics, right? He put it into your head that there is an option of a military force. It says, it's something that you wouldn't use, right? And then he says, we'll hope you'll do the right thing, you know. It's just exactly like a mob guy in like Sopranos or something. Like they put it in, they just say it like, a restaurant can catch on fire, can burn down. And I really hope you will do the right thing and pay me, you know, every month, because it's really horrible when people get their kneecaps, you know, cracked open or something, like, because really horrible things happen. Obviously no one wants that to happen, but I really hope that you will do the right thing here, that I've told you is the right thing. That's, you know, his mafia tactics here.
There are further steps for law enforcement to take as that happens or not. But we are a long way from ever having to call in the military, although, of course, we have to be ready for any eventuality.
And there it is, right? Exactly what I said in the beginning of the video. He started out by saying that that's, you know, the bringing in the military against citizens is not something you do in a democracy. It's not an option that's really something. It's not something that you do. And then let's repeat this actually.
But we are a long way from ever having to call in the military, although, of course, from ever having to call in the military, although, of course, that is an option that is on the table, right? So just as a mobster that's describing how you can burn down your restaurant, yeah, of course, the military might be used against you if you don't comply, if you don't stop protesting against my totalitarian mandates and force. And this is a guy that's supposed to be a good leader of a democracy in the West. To be ready for any eventuality, but it is not something we are seriously contemplating at this time.
Yeah, but by saying that is exactly what he's doing. He's throwing it out there that he will, that they might use the military if you don't do what we're telling you to do, right? So yeah, that's a sad thing that Trudeau just goes out and threatens Canadians to use the military on them because they're protesting against his insane rules that a lot of provinces already have started removing now because they're seeing what's happening in the world. They're seeing how many people are angry about this. And this guy just keeps going with these mafia tactics. I mean, I had a video before where I was just saying how I was disgusted with him. And this makes me even more disgusted with him. Yeah. Have a good night.